So we're here today on two consecutive rules. We're going to start with Rule 91. We'll go through the testimony on that rule, and then we will wrap up that hearing, and then we'll go immediately into Rule 92. So again, we're here on Chapter 92 Nebraska Administrative Code, governing driver qualifications and operational procedures for pupil transportation vehicles. Today is Monday, July 30th, 2018. It is 9 a.m. We are in the State Board Meeting Room, Nebraska Department of Education, 301 Centennial Mall South, 6th floor, Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm calling this hearing to order. My name is Sarah Hulak. I'm one of the attorneys here at the Department of Education. The legal notice of this hearing was published in the Omaha World Herald on June 28th, 2018. For those of you that will be testifying today, Nebraska Department of Education, Bryce Wilson, will describe and explain the proposed revisions to the rule. This will be followed by testimony of any interested persons. Each person presenting written or oral testimony is asked to sign in when you come up to testify, introduce yourself, state a concise suggestion or recommendation of what action you would like the board to take, state the rationale or reason for your recommendation. You may reinforce, but please refrain from repeating previous testimony. Each person testifying will be limited to 5 minutes. At the conclusion of all testimony from interested persons, Mr. Wilson will have the opportunity to respond to the testimony presented today, and that will conclude all of the testimony. The testimony presented is recorded by video and will be made available to the State Board of Education and the public via YouTube. At the time the State Board considers this rule, which should be August 3rd, is that right? 2018. All written testimony must be submitted to the hearing official prior to the end of the day at 5 p.m. in order to be made part of the record for the hearing. So, Mr. Wilson, please provide a description and explanation of the proposed rule.
All right, good morning. Again, I'm Bryce Wilson, the Administrator of Financial and Administrative Services for the Department of Education. I'm going to start by going over the errata sheet, which there are copies of at the back of the room for anybody that wants to see what those are, but there were a couple of proposed non-substantive changes that we're proposed to make in this rule. The first one is in .001.04 under the penalty provisions section. It's just to match up, change a few words to match up with the change in statute 79607. Basically changing shalls to mays and a couple other wording clarifications that match up a statute. The other change to Rule 91 is under .003.01C1. It's just a grammar correction there that eliminates the words the operator's license and adds a comma to make that sentence appear better, I guess. So that's the errata sheet. Revising Rule 91 was a collaborative process with the Nebraska Department of Education staff and a revision committee composed of superintendents from small to mid-sized school districts, transportation directors from large school districts, level 1 instructors, school bus vendors, and representatives of the Nebraska Safety Center. Rule 91 addresses driver qualifications and the operation of pupil transportation vehicles. The committee covered several aspects of safe transportation of students, but a major focus was to make revisions to Rule 91 to comply with statute changes enacted by legislature. LB 42 increased the age of a child from 6 to 8 that must be seated in federally approved child passenger restraint system, and LB 347 eliminated school bus permits. The primary goal of revisions to Rule 91 was to ensure that the requirements to become qualified to drive a pupil transportation vehicle represent best practice and ensure safety to all. With changes included in proposed Rule 91, the process for an individual to become qualified to drive a pupil transportation vehicle will be streamlined. The following sets forth requirements under the current statutes and Rule 91 and the requirements under the revisions to Rule 91. I'm just going to note the differences here. Under training, the big change from the current process right now to what we are proposing in Rule 91 is to reduce the hours of training for the small vehicle drivers. Currently, part of level 1 training, they're required to take an 11-hour training course that is followed with an exam that they must score an 80% on. The 11-hour training will remain for bus drivers, but For the small vehicle drivers, that will be reduced down to 3 hours. So that's a significant decrease in the amount of time for those small vehicle drivers. Under testing, the DMV test that they currently have for the for the bus permits, the written exam, the driving skills, and the eye test will all be gone under DMV requirements. That's a LB 347 change. We will still require, under this proposed change, which is no difference than what's currently in place, a driving skills exam at the end of the level 1 training, as we noted already. Under the physicals, we're still requiring a annual physical. The difference is currently with bus permits, as the process is through the end of the year, drivers have to take those down to the DMV office while they have their eye exam from the DMV. We'll eliminate that second eye exam, and the drivers can upload those physicals electronically to the safety center, where they'll be maintaining a database that will keep track of all the driver requirements that can then be emailed to the school districts and the driver when a driver has met the requirements to drive a school bus or a small vehicle as required in Rule 91. Under renewals, this is one of the areas where there's quite a bit of simplification under the proposed rule, and that is, again, we're just uploading physicals on an annual basis for those first 4 years after level 1 training is required, and there's no other requirements after that first year. On year 5, they will be required to take a level 2 training, which is just 3 hours, again, consistent with what's already in rule. The written knowledge exam will be at the end of that level 2 training. Again, that is a current process as well, and then they'll be required to do a driving skills exam and then upload the annual physical, which is an annual requirement. Currently, they have to do the driving skills exam, eye exam, annual physical, and the written knowledge exam from the DMV will be eliminating essentially a second written exam. That'll just be part of the level training. There'll not be a second one, which was in statute or was in rule already. So that should be a significant clarification. The driving skills test will be conducted by a trained observer before the person will be qualified to drive a pupil transportation vehicle. Once all requirements have been met by NDE, or have met, NDE via the safety center will provide notification to the employee school and the driver. So that's the, I guess, replacements for the LB 347 bus permit process. A couple other additional proposed changes in Rule 91 include requirements for schools to provide 2-hour in-service each year for all drivers of pupil transportation vehicles. That training would include things like emergency evacuations, student loading, unloading processes, student management, vehicle inspections, and the local school's safe pupil transportation plan. There are resources for that training provided by both the Safety Center and NDE on our website that school districts could use. So these are really best practices that are align with the National School Transportation Specifications and Procedures that update their guidance annually. They both for the requirements to meet or have the ability to drive a pupil transportation vehicle in the state of Nebraska, and these additional requirements are all aligned with the national recommendations. We will also be requiring a pre-trip inspection to include a visual sweep of a school bus to check for unintended items sitting near a vehicle or items that have been attached to a vehicle that may seem suspicious and could cause dangerous situations. We're clarifying that the required emergency evacuation drills that are already in rule must be conducted by the school bus drivers. We're also clarifying that handheld wireless communication devices by drivers can only be used when the vehicle is stopped. And that includes the use of the device for written communication or telephone conversations. Also in this rule, we're adding the Safe Pupil Transportation Plan for school districts must include the additional language providing direction on what should be included under current topics. Violations of school district standards under Student Disciplinary Act on a pupil transportation vehicle must be reported to the school district's threat assessment team and or school superintendent. The plan must also include a process to confirm drivers' ability to conduct daily tasks and emergency evacuations, kind of functional capacity test while operating a vehicle. That is in response to the student death and bus driver death that occurred in Iowa this past May, where the driver was unable to get out of the bus and the student perished trying to help the driver. One last thing to note in this rule is that we are updating the definition to a motor coach bus and what may be classified as a motor coach and be used in the state of Nebraska for activity travel. So with that, and I will submit several documents for the record, and that ends my opening.
Thank you, Bryce. Anyone else that wants to testify for Rule 91?
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Julie Maskey, Juliemaaske, and I am the Deputy Director for the Nebraska Department of Motor Vehicles. I appear in opposition to the proposed changes to Title 92, Nebraska Administrative Code, Chapter 91, commonly referred to as Rule 91, as the changes reinstate duplicate filing requirements and annual testing requirements, which were eliminated with the enactment of LB 347 by the legislature earlier this year. The Department of Motor Vehicle worked to eliminate the duplicate processes involved in the licensing of school bus drivers in Nebraska. The requirement to have a school bus permit in addition to the commercial driver's license or Class O license was not consistent with best practices. On the year of the renewal, school bus drivers were basically required to take all of the same tests and provide all of the same documents as for the original issuance of the school bus permit. This was not in line with requirements of other states, nor with other classes of licenses in Nebraska. For the years in between the renewal of their primary license, school bus drivers were annually still required to do two things to qualify for a school bus permit. Number one, provide to the DMV a copy of their recent medical examination, the same report they're required by this rule to provide to the schools. And number two, take a vision test, which is already part of the medical examination, thus making the requirements redundant and unnecessary. My testimony today compares the current process for the processing of applicants for school bus permits and how that process changed with the enactment of LB 347. I would like to offer two charts for comparison. The chart titled Current Nebraska School Bus Permit Testing Requirements, July 2018, that describes by class of school bus permit three things: the required testing for initial issuance of a school bus permit, the required testing for annual renewal of the school bus permit, and the testing required at the time of renewal of their primary license. In addition to the testing described, at the time of issuance and for the yearly renewals, the applicants are required to provide a current copy of their physical examination. Without the proposed changes to this rule, the testing for school bus drivers will be simplified as outlined in the chart titled January 1, 2019 Testing Requirements for Nebraska School Bus Drivers, eliminating the redundant testing every 5 years along with the redundant keeping of records. I would offer the chart as an exhibit for the record. As the charts show, the proposed changes do not streamline but replicate what the legislature eliminated in Legislative Bill 347. The rule revisions as proposed keep the duplicate record keeping and continue to require annual testing for persons transporting school pupils. This is unnecessary and should be revised. I thank you for the opportunity to provide comments regarding this rule of the Nebraska Administrative Code. And I do have something for the record.
Thank you.
Can I just give that to
Yeah, you have to find it, please. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Senator Suzanne Geist. I represent District 25 here in Lincoln. And I also was the senator who introduced LB 347 to the legislature, which eliminated some of the licensing requirements for school bus drivers. And in order to comply with your suggestion that we not be duplicative or redundant, I do agree with the testimony of Deputy Director Maskey. Our intention was to eliminate the duplication process, and so I agree with that. I would just add one additional item, and that is, I know that currently school bus drivers are being hired or attempted to be hired in this district and in many others across the state. And my concern with this type of duplication of regulation is that it discourages drivers from being hired. And I know there's a shortage currently, and so I would just recommend that this action not be taken, and that out of ease of eliminating some of the difficulties and the hurdles that come with being a school bus driver, and the processes that they end up doing over and over, I would recommend that the action not be taken. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Mick Anderson, Director of the Nebraska Safety Center, which administers the pupil transportation for the Department of Education. I'm speaking today in support of Rule 91, requiring bus drivers to go through the driving skills and training. The Nebraska Safety Center was established in 1978 as part of LB 693 to provide safety training and research throughout the whole state. In 2000, the Department of Ed and Nebraska Safety Center developed a partnership that the Nebraska Safety Center would conduct the training to administer the pupil transportation. Currently, the updates to Rule 91 require driver training, testing, and additional training. We strongly oppose to removing into that driving skills portion of the test for several reasons. Anyone that would have a grandchild, a child, niece, nephew, or anyone would never want to see someone placed on that bus without having that skill set. We also ask ourselves, would we feel confident that the bus driver would not be able to drive the bus safely without having those skills or being tested for that? And would anyone in this room be comfortable walking outside driving a bus by just attending a class? The potential risk for not doing this would be the risk management is focusing and evaluation of financial risk on human lives and injuries together with identifying procedures to avoid the minimum impact. We feel that Rule 91 focuses on reducing risk to children and drivers and school districts to accomplish that requirement. As indicated earlier, the incident in Iowa that took the life of a 16-year-old and a bus driver, contributing factors do indicate failure in laws to prevent those in governing to schools and buses in Iowa. Recently, the New Jersey state lawmakers have just approved July 1st a package of 10 new bills that aim to improve school bus safety on the heels of an accident responding over the last several months. The state senator indicated that they do not want to have another tragedy like this to happen again before they added the new laws. They voted unanimously to pass those. Under the OSHA Occupational Safety and Health Act, the employers are responsible for providing a safe and healthful workplace. OSHA's role is to ensure that conditions of American workers, men and women, by setting and enforcing standards to focus the completion of training, education, and proper skills to their job. This would also encourage that. In closing, the Nebraska Safety Center strongly supports the revisions submitted in Rule 91, the requirements for bus drive skills testing under the updated Rule 91, and help schools districts train bus drivers to safely drive students to and from schools. The requirements put the school districts in a position doing the right thing at the right time, not waiting for an accident to happen. And on behalf of the Nebraska Safety Center, I'd ask that these revisions to Rule 91 as submitted be approved. I have a document to submit with them.
Good morning. My name is Rich Casey. I'm the Transportation Director for Bellevue Public Schools, and I would like to offer my recommendation for approval of the Rule 91 changes as briefed by Administrator Wilson. I believe the passage of LB 347 and removing the task of requiring a DMV to determine whether a driver is qualified to drive a student transportation vehicle, whether that be a 10-passenger van or an 84-passenger school bus, was the right decision. The process to obtain a school bus permit was not only taxing and cumbersome for DMV, in my opinion, but also offered little net gain in terms of ensuring whether a student transportation vehicle operator was really qualified to operate such vehicle. Requiring a driver to pass a 20-question test and drive around the block to simulate a student pickup and a railroad track crossing was the only requirement to get a school bus permit, and that is just a minuscule part of what a student transportation driver must be able to safely accomplish every day. However, I believe we should not reduce the oversight of the qualifications of a student transportation vehicle operator. In fact, I believe the Department of Education and individual school districts are in the best position to ensure that drivers who transport students are properly trained and certified to do so. They are the experts in the myriad of responsibilities that a driver must be able to perform every day. The proposed changes to Rule 91 offer the right balance of minimizing the impact of school districts while ensuring drivers who transport our most precious cargo are properly trained and qualified throughout their career as a student transportation driver. As a student transportation director, I believe all of the proposed revisions to Rule 91 are not only appropriate but necessary to ensure the school-age children are placed in the safest hands possible as they travel to and from school every day. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Corey Sundberg with Coach Masters in Kearney, Nebraska. I'm the sales manager there and currently on the committee with the Department of Ed for our rule revision. And I just wanted to provide testimony for Rule 91, Section 002.04, the definition of a motor coach. I believe that it is the intent of the Department of Ed to restrict the use of shuttle buses by the school districts. The definition of a motor coach needs to be more restrictive as well. The proposed definition of a motor coach in Rule 91 leaves loopholes, in my opinion, for a shuttle bus to be able to be construed by definition as a motor coach. The GVWR, or gross vehicle weight rating, in the proposed Rule 91 is not high enough. Motor coaches start at around 40,000 GVW, shuttle buses much less. The definition also needs to include the wordings, a motor coach is a vehicle of unitized construction such as monocoque or semi-monocoque construction, opposed to the body-on-frame construction that shuttle buses use. The motor coaches have been one of the most robust forms of transportation for the activities of our kids here in Nebraska. And until just recently, everyone, meaning the dealers in Nebraska, have respected the intent of Rule 91 and 92 and not selling shuttle buses to schools. But it has happened in the last year or two. So I believe that we need to take a look at making a more restrictive definition for the motor coach with my proposed wording. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to testify on Chapter 91, Rule 91? Mr. Wilson, if you want to come up and give any further testimony, I would appreciate it.
I just want to thank everybody for their input at the hearing. We'll consider that and move forward from there.
Thank you. At this time, then, I will close the hearing on the proposed revisions of 92 NAC 91. Open the hearing on 92 Nebraska Administrative Code, Chapter 92, regulations governing the minimum equipment standards and safety inspection criteria for pupil transportation vehicles. Again, today is Monday, July 30th, 2018. It is 9:26 a.m. We are in the State Board meeting room at the Nebraska Department of Education, 301 Centennial Mall South, 6th floor, Lincoln, Nebraska. Calling this hearing to order. I am Sarah Hulak. I'm one of the legal counsel here at the Nebraska Department of Education. The legal notice of this hearing was published in the Omaha World Herald on June 28th, 2018. Anyone wishing to testify, initially, the Nebraska Department of Education staff member Bryce Wilson will describe and explain the proposed revisions to the rule. This will be followed by any testimony of interested persons. Each person presenting written or oral testimony is requested to sign in on the sheet in front of Mr. Wilson and introduce yourself. Provide a concise suggestion or recommendation of what action you would like the board to take. State the rationale or reason for your recommendation. You may reinforce, but please refrain from repeating previous testimony. Each person testifying will be limited to 5 minutes. At the conclusion of all testimony from interested persons, Mr. Wilson will have the opportunity to respond to the testimony presented today, and that will conclude the testimony. The testimony presented will be recorded, and the video is made available to the State Board of Education and the public via YouTube at the time the State Board considers this rule, that is August 3rd, 2018. All written testimony must be submitted to the hearing official prior to the end of the day at 5 p.m. in order to make made a part of the record for the hearing. Mr. Wilson, please provide a description and explanation of the proposed rule.
All right, good morning again, and my name is Bryce Wilson. I'm the Administrator of Financial and Administrative Services for the Department of Education. Again, going to start with the errata sheet for Rule 92, a couple of proposed non-substantive changes. Again, same as as Rule 91, 0.001.05. We are just updating language in that penalty provisions section to match the current statute. There are changes in that statute since last time this rule was revised, and that's section 79603 of the Nebraska statutes. Again, changing a couple of shalls to mays and a couple of other small wording changes that are non-substantive. Additionally, there are changes to 0.005.23R by adding a 2, just changing the section number. 0.005.23R, adding a 3 in that section number, and then in section 0.005.16M, just adding a C to chassis, and 0.005.2 3K, just eliminating the 6 there and renumbering that section as well. No changes to the actual wording in that. So, revising Rule 92, similar to Rule 91, was a collaborative process with the Nebraska Department of Education staff, a revision committee composed of superintendents from small to mid-sized school districts, transportation directors from large school districts, level instructors, school bus vendors, and representatives of the Nebraska Safety Center. Rule 92 identifies school bus and small vehicle specifications along with the 80-day inspection process for pupil transportation vehicles. Rule 92 was updated to reflect the 2015 national recommendations for school bus specifications, which are reviewed and approved by the National Congress on School Transportation on a 5-year cycle. The National Congress on School Transportation is composed of representatives from each state along with technical experts that manufacture buses. The proposed revisions in Rule 92 uses the inspection criteria included in the national recommendations. Nebraska currently maintains its own inspection criteria. There are a handful of these, or there's quite a few changes to the definitions. I'm going to quickly run through those. Again, just the theme you'll hear in this is we're really making sure that our bus specifications match the national recommendations. So start off with .002.03, and that is updating the motor coach definition, which is revised to include a gross vehicle weight of 33,001 pounds and is designed and adds the words designated to seat at least 32 passengers. It deletes the front door only and no rear emergency exit wording from the definition of motor coach. .002.05 clarifies the definition of route to add other locations related to a student's instructional program. That is consistent with guidance that we've been giving, just more clarification around that term, not adding additional or new requirements to what should be done. .003.04a, it references 49 USC sections 30112 and 30125. Person cannot sell a new vehicle that carries more than 10 passengers that does not meet school bus specs, and that will be used primarily to transport school students to school or school events. Section .005.02 aligns national standards on aisles. .005.05, again aligning with national standards on body sizes of vehicles. .005.06 aligns to national standards for brakes and adds requirements for parking pole or park interlock. .005.07 bumper front, align the wording there with the national standards. .005.09 certification, and what that requires is aligned with the national standards. .005.11 clutch is removed. .005.10 aligning the colors with national standards. .005.12 construction is aligned with the national standards, added the placement of a cylinder, added dust-proof, watertight construction requirements. .005.15 removes cooling systems and what's required there. .005.13 defrosters aligns to the national standards, and .005.14 again aligning with the national standards requirements on doors for a school bus. .005.16 the electrical systems are aligned with the national standards, including adding clarifications around battery trays and buses with lifts. Exhaust systems are aligned with national standards in .005.18. .005.19 aligns the national standards with the front fenders, and .005.22 we added requirements that align with the national standards around fuel tanks. .005.23 updates the fuel alternative requirements, again to align with national standards. In section .005.24, we are deleting reference requirements for a tachometer to align with the national standards. And handrails are addressed in .005.25, added handrail regulations. .005.26, heating systems are aligned with the national standards, added AC specifications for buses equipped with ACs. .005.28 aligns the national standards for how high letters on top of the bus can be. .005.29 instruments and instruments panels are aligned with the national standards. .005.31, we're aligning to the national standards for the interior as far as overhead storage compartments. .005.38, passenger load are aligned with national standards and gross vehicle weight. .005.42, seats and restraining barriers are aligned to the national standards. Added specific seat back height of 24 inches. Added reference to FMVSS school bus passenger seating and crash protections. Added lap belt criteria for optional child safety restraint systems. And added a section on preschool age seating on school buses. .005.53 addresses tires and rims and deletes the use of recapped tires as an acceptable use for those, and that aligns to national standards. And .005.56 addresses transmissions to align with national standards. .005.59 undercoating, again aligning with national standards. .005.62 windows and the requirements there to align with the national standards. .007.06 passenger capacity is aligned to the national standards. Adds a reference to a diagram for wheelchair and envelope in appendix. .007.07 power lifts and ramps aligned with the national standards. .007.08 regular service entrance aligned to the national standards, and the additional handrail is an option. .007.09 restraining devices again aligned to the national standards. .007.10 seating arrangements were aligned to the national standards. And then .007.11 wheelchair tie down and occupant restraint systems. Adjusts the specifications for supplying adjustment devices on occupant restraint systems to align with the national standards there. And .007.15 support equipment and accessories were aligned to the national standards. 009 adopting, this is one of the big changes to this rule. We're adopting the 2015 inspection criteria, or we're proposing to adopt the 2015 inspection criteria as a replacement for the inspection criteria currently used in Rule 92 that is Nebraska specific, but very closely mimics the national criteria. So we are just moving ours over to, suggesting to move ours over to the national criteria. So that is the changes to Rule 92.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Anyone else want to testify on Rule 92?
Again, I'm Corey Sundberg with Coach Masters in Kearney, Nebraska. And the definition of the motor coach is also in Rule 92, so I'll be slightly brief. It's basically the same definition in both rules. So I just strongly believe that if it's the intent of the Department of Education to restrict the use of shuttle buses by our schools in Nebraska, the definition of a motor coach needs to be more restrictive as well. The proposed definition of a motor coach leaves some loopholes for a shuttle bus to be construed by definition as a motor coach. The gross vehicle weight rating in Rule 92, the proposed, is not high enough. It should be 40,000. The definition also needs to include wording such as a motor coach is a vehicle of unitized construction such as monocoque or semi-monocoque design, opposed to the body-on-frame construction that shuttle buses use. Also, Rule 92, Section 005.31D2. This is an addition in the proposed rule for parcel racks to be completely enclosed and equipped with latching door, both door and latch sufficient to withstand a pushing force of 50 pounds applied at the inside center of the door. I would suggest that this is completely stricken and removed because you're adding a cost requirement that would be substantial if a school wanted parcel racks inside their bus. That's it.
Thank you. Any others wishing to testify on Rule 92? Seeing no one, I will invite Mr. Wilson back up to give any further testimony.
Again, just want to thank the testimony, and we'll take those suggestions into consideration.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. Thanks everyone for testifying. At this time, I will close the hearing on Rule 92.